Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Scoberg here, Consolidated Planning Group. We are happy that you have decided to join us for an hour today as we talk about ABLE accounts and whether or not you need one. We're going to go a little bit deeper on that today. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors and members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. Our whole firm is nuanced in planning for special needs. Some of you may have attended our webinars in the past, and we would just like to say welcome back. But if you're here for the first time, we are glad you're here. You are definitely in the right place, and we aim to help you on your planning journey as it relates to planning for your loved one that has a disability. This whole, series of webinars, we've been doing webinars for a number of years now on planning for special needs on a variety of topics. All of our past webinars live on our Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. On that channel, I think there's over 500 webinars on planning for special needs. So if you can think of a topic, it's probably out there. We've done topics on special needs trust, guardianship, sometimes that's called conservatorship, SSI and Medicaid, working on SSI, a letter of intent. There's so many things out there. So this series was born out of my own frustration. I am a parent to adult kids with disabilities, and I eat, sleep, and breathe this. This is what I do. I know this stuff backwards and forwards, and I myself felt that transitioning into adulthood, kind of knowing what I need to do and when, I felt it was disjointed and I felt it was unnecessarily difficult. So I just want to provide a little bit of encouragement first to say, if you have ever felt like, hey, I'm no match for this stuff is hard, or if you feel frustrated or defeated, you're definitely not alone. So I want you to know that you're not alone. But we hope that these webinars that we provide will empower you and give you some of the tools and resources that you need to be successful on your journey. And we are happy to answer questions as you have them. So people did send some questions in today, which we appreciate, and we're going to capture those questions today during the presentation. So here at Consolidated Planning Group, when we talk about special needs planning, sometimes there's confusion on what we do versus what the attorney does. Okay, so when it comes to planning for special needs, you need a special needs planner, and you also need an estate planning attorney that is nuanced in special needs. Okay, so the estate planning attorney, they're the ones that are going to help you with such things as guardianship, and in other states it's sometimes called conservatorship. They're going to help you with your wills, your special needs trust, and some of those other legal documents. And so I say that they're the paper and that we're the money. Okay, how much money do I need to fund a special needs trust? What public benefits should I apply for and when? How do I make sure that I have money in the right buckets to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs? We do a lot of protection plans of how to fund the special needs trust. Lifetime care plans. We do a lot of transition planning, transitioning into adulthood. What is next? Is it higher education? Is it going to work? The Workforce Commission, those types of things, vocational rehab. We help people set up ABLE accounts, which is what we're talking about today. And as I mentioned, we do a lot of advocacy by way of our webinars and our YouTube channel. So when it comes to planning for special needs, whether you work with us or you work with somebody else, it is our suggestion that you work with a firm that is specifically nuanced in special needs when it comes to financial planning for yourself, your spouse, and for your loved one with a disability. All financial advisors, just like all attorneys, are not created equally. Some are specifically nuanced in special needs, and fewer than 0.1% of all financial advisors have any background in special needs. And the reason this is important is you want an advisor that has an understanding, a deep understanding of the public benefits. And I'm speaking more so of SSI and Medicaid, because there are very specific guidelines to qualify for those programs and to maintain your eligibility for those programs. So when you're working with a specialist that is not nuanced with special needs, they might accidentally make a recommendation that could cause your child to lose these benefits, which is a big deal. And the the same thing with the attorneys. We strongly recommend, and we make referrals to attorneys all day long, that we know are nuanced and special needs. We know they're good. We know that they know what they're doing as it relates to your legal documents. And that's really important as well, because some attorneys will say, oh yes, I can do a special needs trust for you. And while they can, it may fail to qualify as a special needs trust in the eyes of the Social Security Administration, because there's specifically not a needed clause in your documents. So that is very important. In fact, I had a meeting yesterday with somebody who has a special needs trust, and because that clause, it was not drawn up by an attorney that's nuanced and special needs, and because that clause was not in their documents, the Social Security Administration is counting the entire trust and the money that's in the trust against that individual. So it's super, super important. All right, so today we're talking about ABLE accounts, achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. The ABLE Act is under the tax code 529A, and it was enacted in 2014. And to date, there are 49 ABLE programs nationwide. So one of the first things that I like to tell people is that you can have an ABLE account from any state. It does not matter what state's ABLE account you have. Some states are more favorable than others. The accounts that we open up for people and ABLE accounts happen to be the Virginia ABLE. So first things first, it doesn't matter where you're attending this webinar from, what state you're in, you can have an ABLE account from any of the particular states that have these ABLE accounts. So one of the things, and this was one of the questions that we had today, and this is a question that we get every single time we either do a special needs trust talk or we do an ABLE account talk, is what is the difference between an ABLE account and a special needs trust, and which one do you think is better? And I would say that one isn't necessarily better than the other, okay? They work beautifully together. So in general, most people need both an ABLE account and a special needs trust. So when it comes to special needs trust, there's a first party, that's the kid's money. If there was a lawsuit and they were left money that didn't go to a third party special needs trust, there's a first party special needs trust, and there is a Medicaid payback on a first party special needs trust. The right way to leave money to an individual with a disability and preserve their eligibility for state and federally funded programs is to leave the money to a third party special needs trust, and that third party special needs trust does not have a Medicaid payback. And then there's language in a third party special needs trust that will allow for payments from the trust for the benefit of said individual. And it might be for housing, it could be for food, it could be any variety of things that you can pay for. So one of the differences between an ABLE account and a special needs trust is you can have an unlimited amount of money in a special needs trust, where there is a limited amount of money that you can have in an ABLE account. Another thing that I want you to be clear on is that an ABLE account can pay for housing without a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So while a special needs trust, sometimes people will say you cannot pay for housing out of a special needs trust, and that's not necessarily true. You can. But if the individual is getting SSI, supplemental security income, I'm not talking about SSDI or CDB, childhood disability benefits. If they're getting SSI and we pay for housing out of a special needs trust, then there would be a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So the answer is again, the ABLE account and the special needs trust, they work beautifully together. And another thing is that an ABLE account cannot be a beneficiary of a life insurance. So if you're a parent with a loved one with a disability, and let's say you have a life insurance contract and you want to make the ABLE account the beneficiary, you cannot do that. Okay, that's not a thing, you can't do that. But you can make the special needs trust for the benefit of said child. You can make the beneficiary that special needs trust. So those are some of the difference. So when it comes to ABLE accounts, how it works is the beneficiary is the account owner. Income earned in the account is not taxable. Contributions are not deductible on federal taxes, but there are special contribution limits. But the key thing about the ABLE account, there's basically two places outside of the $2,000. Most states, not all of them, California is different. There's a few states that are different. They have an asset limit of $2,000 for Medicaid. Okay. So in all sources, any account outside of an ABLE account and a special needs trust, we can't have more than $2,000 in the name of the individual with a disability before they disqualify for such things as SSI or Medicaid. But you can have more than the $2,000 in an ABLE account or a special needs trust. So that is the big thing, is the money in the ABLE account is used for achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, but it absolutely does not jeopardize SSI, Medicaid, or other public benefits such as Medicaid waivers or things like that. Okay, so I should have mentioned in the beginning that everybody that registered for today's webinar is going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording, and then the recording will also live on our YouTube channel. So you don't have to take notes on everything that you're seeing here today. We will send you an email with these slides. And then if you also have any additional questions that we didn't get to today, then you can certainly reach out to us. So when it comes to an ABLE account, what are the requirements? So as far as a participant is concerned, the disabled individual whose disability started prior to age 26, that number, that age, so the disability had to start prior to age 26, that age is going up to age 46 in 2026, just so you know. And so a lot of times I get questions of, hey, my child is a minor. Can my child that's a minor have an ABLE account? And the answer is yes, as long as they're basically considered disabled. But you may want to wait. Sometimes we provide advice that you should wait on setting up an ABLE account unless they're already getting SSI. Many of our children, although they are disabled, when they're children and they're under the ages of 18, they are not qualifying for public benefits such as SSI, because it's based off of the parent's income and assets prior to them turning 18, not the child's. So if they're not getting SSI, then maybe you don't want to have an ABLE for them until they are getting SSI. But then there are other families that have kids that are getting a Medicaid waiver. They might be getting MDCP, and all states call the Medicaid waivers a little different. But if the child is getting Medicaid, under a Medicaid program or any of the other, there's 109 Medicaid programs in Texas, so any of those other programs, then you may want to consider an ABLE account prior to them turning 18. So first things first, the individual with a disability can only have one ABLE account. So we get that question a lot. So could I have an ABLE account for said child, and then my husband has an ABLE account for said child, and what about the grandparents? So it's only one ABLE account per individual with disability, and that's a little bit different than the 529Cs for college, whereas each parent could have a 529C for the child, and grandparents could have a 529C for the child as well. So contributions can be made by anyone. I could contribute to your child's ABLE account. It could be money from earnings if the child is working. It could be from any person can contribute. It's limited to the gift tax exclusion, and it changes each year. So for 2025, the total amount of money that you can put into an ABLE account is $19,000 annually. Okay, so funds that are held in an ABLE account in excess of $100,000 disqualify the beneficiary from SSI. So what we're saying is the contribution limits annually are $19,000, but we never want the account balance to go over $100,000 because it would make them disqualify for SSI benefits. So that's going to be an important factor. And so this is what I was saying, is that you could have an unlimited amount of money in a special needs trust, but it is a limited amount of money that you could have in an ABLE account. And $100,000 is never, ever, ever going to be enough to offset the child's expenses once you're gone. So we're just using this. As a parent of kids with disabilities, I use this ABLE account as a savings to spend account. Okay. So it is, it is tax deferred, tax-free distributions. Distributions for qualified disability expenses are not taxable. So basically, if it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, you can pay for it out of an ABLE account. It might be co-pays, it might be tutoring, it might be higher education, it could be any number of things. It could be recreation, it could be day programs or summer programs or summer camps. Again, if you could say, it could be like adaptive technology. There's so many things. I've found very few things that can't be considered even a vacation for the individual, as well as 1 to 2 caregivers, depending on the severity of the disability, right? Could be paid for out of this. So upon death, it may be rolled over to other family members who are eligible beneficiaries, which would be other family members that have a disability. But the key thing that you have to know is that states may be able to claim reimbursement for expenses paid by Medicaid. So this is where you may have heard the term a Medicaid clawback or a Medicaid drawback or a Medicaid payback, or all some of the terms that are thrown around in our community. In the state of Texas, there is a Medicaid payback on ABLE accounts. Okay, so at the beginning of this webinar, I said that you could have an ABLE account through any state. Not all states have Medicaid paybacks. And so the question comes up, and it's a great question. The question comes up is, so if I get my ABLE account in a state that does not have a Medicaid payback, then do I avoid the Medicaid payback? And the answer is no. It's a clever idea, and I wish it would work, but the answer is no, you do not avoid the Medicaid payback, because Medicaid is state specific. So in the state of Texas, there is a Medicaid payback. It doesn't matter what state you have. As far as the ABLE account, there would still be a Medicaid payback. And likewise, if you ended up having a Texas Medicaid, if you lived out of state and you had a Texas ABLE account, there would not be a Medicaid payback if you lived in a state where there is not a Medicaid payback, okay? So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so I kind of already mentioned this, but again, if it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, you definitely can pay for it out of an ABLE account. But one of the key things is that you can pay for shelter out of an ABLE account without a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is an example of things that you can pay for out of an ABLE account. Basic daily living expenses, health and wellness, things that are not covered by Medicaid or private health insurance. You could pay housing, rent, or mortgage, or monthly debt services for utilities, things like that. Financial management services like ours, or legal services, transportation services, any type of education. You can pay for higher education out of an ABLE account. And when it comes to a 529C or a 529A for an individual with a disability, I lean into the ABLE account, because the ABLE account can pay for a variety of expenses, including higher education, whereas the 529C is for higher education, and they have a small stipend that you can use for private education. So to me, for the individual with the disability, the ABLE account is going to be better, because it's going to give you more flexibility of what you can pay for said person. So we talked about assistive technology, personal support services, legal expenses. These are all things that you can pay for out of an ABLE account. So one of the things that I mentioned a moment ago is kind of using this as a savings to spend account. I think it is favorable that it's tax-free and tax-free distributions. So some people know that they have caregiver expenses. Some people know that they have housing expenses. Maybe some of our kids are living in residential living facilities, and there's out-of-pocket expenses that are related to that. So they put money in, and then they make a distribution to pay the money out to pay for those expenses. So a lot of times I get questions on how or when do I withdraw money, and how is that going to be counted against. So basically, when we set up an ABLE account, we set it up in the individual's name, and we tie the account, the checking account, we can tie the parent's account to it. And we can also tie the child's account. If the child is getting SSI and payments for SSI are going to a bank account or a rep payee account, We tie those accounts to it. And what we suggest people do is if you need a distribution from the ABLE account, request those distributions between the 1st and the 5th of the month. The value of doing that is that's going to give you plenty of time to spend that money for the benefit of the beneficiary during that calendar month. So you could request more than the $2,000 because everybody's always afraid of having more than $2,000 in their name. You can request the money. Let's say you requested $3,500. You request it between the 1st and the 5th, it goes into the account. And as long as you have spent that money down prior to the end of that calendar month, so if there's, 30 days in April, as long as you've spent it prior to the 30 days, the 30th of April, it's not 30 days from the time you receive it, it's the calendar month, then it's not going to be counted against you for SSI and Medicaid purposes that following month. Okay, so that's good advice right there. I just wanted to mention that. So this slide, what can a special needs trust pay for? It's a little bit deceptive the way it's laid out because it makes it look like, gosh, a special needs trust can pay for a lot more things than an ABLE account. That's not true. It's just the way the slide is laid out. But the main thing that you need to know is that the special needs trust can pay for all the things that the ABLE account can pay for. But if you pay for monthly debt service for utilities, for rent or housing or shelter, there would be a 1/3 reduction to SSI. And again, I'm only speaking of supplemental security income SSI. If you've ever felt confused on all of that, supplemental security income is a means-based program. It's for the disabled and the indigent. After we retire and turn on our Social Security, or if we're getting survivor benefits or Social Security disability benefits, our children transfer. You have to apply for childhood disability benefits, and the rules for that are different, and there is not going to be a reduction to SSDI basically for paying for shelter out of that special needs trust. Okay, so examples of things that a special needs trust should not be used for: rent, mortgage payments, real estate taxes, gas, electricity, water, and sewage. Okay. And so I need to put a line through the no food. And this is to avoid that 1/3 reduction to SSI is what I'm talking about. In October of last year, they did get rid of the food. So you can use a special needs trust to pay for food. Okay. So you should never pay the individual with a disability directly. It should go indirectly for said individual's benefit. So we don't pay the individual and then write a check out of the individual's account to pay for shelter or pay for recreation. We pay for that stuff from the special needs trust directly to that vendor. Okay. And there's no reimbursement to the client for any items that they've purchased without permission of the trustee. So we had someone in the chat box that says, we have assets in a first party corporate special needs trust, which we ask if we could move some to an ABLE account. The trustee has responded that they would like to see a budget and they need to ask a judge, making it sound like it might not be an easy process. We're in Montgomery County. We had issues with getting things approved, or they examined things in great detail. Does the ultimate approval to move some assets from the special needs trust to the ABLE account rest with the judge, or is there anything we can do? I think it really rests with what it says in your documents in the actual trust, and it also rests with the trustee. People move money from the first party special needs trust to the ABLE account all of the time. I've definitely moved money from a first party special needs trust to an ABLE account for my kids. So it definitely can be done, but I guess it depends on who the trustee, if the court is the trustee, or if it's a family friend, if there's a corporate trustee. Sometimes the corporate trustees are great, and sometimes it makes it a little bit harder to navigate. So I'd be happy to one-off with you on that. But it absolutely, you can put money from an ABLE account to a special needs trust, and from an ABLE account to a special needs trust, and from a special needs trust to an ABLE account. But one thing that we try to avoid is that moving money from a third party special needs trust to an ABLE account, because you're going to go from an account that does not have a Medicaid payback to an account that does have a Medicaid payback. And so we've seen Cadence Bank as the corporate trustee. Oftentimes we are in favor of Cadence Bank. They have an entire special needs division. And so I've known them to be pretty wonderful. So if you're having problems, maybe get escalated. But we see Cadence Bank a lot as a corporate trustee. How can I determine if my son will need one of these accounts? And this is where I would say if they're not getting SSI or Medicaid, I would wait. I would fund my own accounts. If you're married, you and your spouse's accounts, because basically we're supporting these kids. They're not supporting us. So if they don't have SSI, they don't have Medicaid or a Medicaid waiver, I would maybe delay opening an ABLE account. So it's just food for thought. It doesn't mean you have to. We spent a lot of time talking about the difference between a special needs trust and an ABLE account. One person says that they would like to know if they should gain conservatorship or guardianship of their child when their child turns 18. That is a very loaded question, and it is a very personal question, and it's sometimes an emotional thought process. In most states, in the state of Texas, the law is the least restrictive, most appropriate for the ward, W-A-R-D. I don't like that word. Least restrictive, most appropriate for the individual is what the rules are for guardianship. Most states have alternatives to guardianship. Supported decision-making agreement, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. There might be a partial guardianship. A full guardianship is going to take away all of their rights, the right to vote, the right to drive, the right to everything, okay? A partial guardianship may allow them to keep some of those rights, but may give you rights over their healthcare, may give you rights over where they live, and things like that. And so what I always tell people, it's not a slam dunk, but a general rule of thumb is that an individual has an intellectual disability with an IQ below 70, it may be questionable on whether or not they would have the capacity to sign legal documents or enter into a contract and understand what they're signing. So clearly, if the individual is able, if a parent says, hey, sign here, the child will sign, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have capacity. And we have seen people that got documents signed by a child that are by an adult that didn't have capacity, that those documents were later rejected. So it's important to explore this with the attorney. The attorneys are not going to bite you, okay? The attorneys that are nuanced and special needs, they're trained to work with you, to discuss things with you, to research and to talk to your child, and then to make a recommendation that is the least restrictive and most appropriate, okay? So you don't have to know going in what you need when you sit down with the attorney. They have to talk to you about the least restrictive and the most appropriate. So someone says, if we want to purchase an iPad with an ABLE account, how to document that? Do we need to? Can I also use an ABLE to pay for copays for ABA therapy? And the answer is yes for both. You can use the ABLE account for both. And what I tell people as far as your documentation is concerned, keep receipts, keep a spreadsheet of what you've spent the money for. Since 2014, I have had exactly no one ever asked to produce what they spent the money on. But what my feeling is that one day the IRS is going to say, hey, wait a minute, we haven't been asking about that. And then they're going to ask everybody. So I think, keeping a clear documentation of that is going to be important. Excuse me. Talk a little bit too much on these webinars. So we have the pollen flying in Texas, so I think everybody's allergies are all out of whack today. Okay, so on the screen here, and there's links and other things, and like I said, we're going to send these out to everyone who has attended. These are educational options beyond high school. Most of these are in Texas. I think there may be some that are outside of Texas. But we always like to encourage people and to let you know that Even if your child has an intellectual disability, there are educational options beyond high school for them. There are educational options for people that have intellectual disabilities, IQs below 70. So we have entire webinars on higher education and what's next, kind of transition planning on the Consolidated Planning Group channel. So you'll want to check this out. We've also done what I call speed dating webinars, like a college panel webinar, where a lot of the representatives from each one of these programs that you're seeing on the screen came on and during a 1 hour webinar, and they said who they are, where they're located, who they serve, how their program works. So in the course of an hour, you can find out a lot about these programs relatively quickly. I know life gets busy, so there's also a lot of day and transition programs. We encourage families to think about what's next. Is your child going to stay in public school or private school to 21 or 22? Are they going to leave these settings at age 18? What's next? What we're trying to prevent is them coming home and sitting on the couch playing video games and not having interactions with others, not growing, not maturing. We want them to have that interaction and be growing and maturing. Maybe they're working with VR. Maybe it is a day program that is awesome. These are some of the day and transition programs that we know about. There's a lot all across the United States, not just in Texas. These are going to be Texas ones, but there is a lot. We have a whole list of some across the state. And then also be thinking about transition and residential living programs. And we're not saying not everybody on here has a plan for their child once as an adult to live outside of their home. And then there are people that are on here today that definitively has a plan for their child to live outside their home. And what I would say is, while you're of sound mind and body, just remember you may not always feel as good as you do now. People get sick, people pass away, and having a program like that you've stuck your toe in since they were, young adults, is going to be important, because one day we're not going to be here. Our loved ones with a disability may live 25 to 35 years after we're gone. So a lot of these places have summer camps that you could dip your toe in. Some of them have a program where they might come and stay for 2 or 3 days to kind of see how that works and see if it's a good fit. But be looking at these and thinking about that early. And also, I say that it's the marathon, not the sprints, right? When we have a loved one with a disability that's going to be here with us for the rest of their life, not just ours, the way we plan for that is a little bit different, because they could be here 25 to 35 years after we're gone. But our semblance of retirement is a little bit different. The neurotypical kid either graduates high school, goes to college, or goes to work or whatever. But the bottom line is that it's over time, they they fledge the nest and they are independent adults. They might get married and have their own space and that kind of stuff. So when we have a disability, a child with a disability that may be here for the rest of their life, not just ours, you've got to have some balance in your life as well. And what we've found is that families that don't have some kind of balance, some kind of respite, some kind of, day program or other thing that their loved one is going to, then your caregiving abilities is diminished. You might get sick, you may have stress related illnesses and other things like that. So that does definitely matter. So just be thinking about that. And the reason I say all that is that the waiting list for some of these places could be quite long. So you can't just wait for the crisis to happen and then you need a spot. You could have a 3 to 5 year waiting list to get in with these. A lot of these places would require you do a tour to get on their waiting list, and it doesn't hurt to get on the list. And when you come up on the list, you have the right to say no, but you can't say yes if there's no room. So we just would like to have that be kind of a consideration as you're thinking about things. So we had another comment in the chat box. I think you mentioned that you can't pay for housing costs from a special needs trust for an SSI or Medicaid waiver recipient. What if the DAC, and they're speaking of DAC, Disabled Adult Child, is what the Social Security Administration called it for 40 years. And a couple of years ago, they changed the name for DAC, which we all knew, to CDB, Childhood Disability Benefits, or RSDI. So CDB, DAC, Retirement Survivor Disability Income, SSDI, they're all the same. Can the Special Needs Trust pay for the housing cost if the DAC is getting a Medicaid waiver program? And the answer is yes, the Special Needs Trust can if they're getting a Medicaid waiver program. Medicaid waiver, the income requirements for a Medicaid waiver to keep the Medicaid waiver is 300% of SSI. So for, let me look at that number, 28, 29, I think. Hang on one second. So basically right now the SSI number is 967 a month. So income, as long as the person, if they're working or if they're getting other benefits, you might be getting an OPM pension or military pension or other things like that. As long as their income is lower, not assets, income is lower than 2901 a month, then they can keep that Medicaid waiver. And just so you guys know, we have done entire webinars, many, on the Medicaid waivers, how to get on the list. So what a Medicaid waiver is, so if you're hearing this for the first time, I know a lot of you aren't, so just be patient with me. Medicaid waivers are designed to waive off some of the cost of care for caring for an individual with a disability to keep them in home and community-based services. All states have a Medicaid waiver. So if you're attending and you're not in Texas, that's great. We work with people all across the United States. They may be called something a little bit different, but all states have Medicaid waivers. Unfortunately, for Texas residents, our waiting list for Medicaid waivers is in excess of 17 years. I've heard 20 even recently. So you want to get your child on the list sooner versus later, and there are multiple lists, and it's not just one list, there's multiple lists. So we do entire Medicaid waiver presentations, and this all lives on our YouTube channel, that will tell you what the Medicaid waivers are in Texas, how to get yourself on the list, how to check the status of where your child is on the list if you're already on the list. But these Medicaid waivers are designed, again, to offset some of the expenses for caring for an individual with a disability, to keep them in home and community-based services. They may pay for attendance services or respite services. They may pay for various therapies, every type of therapy you can think of. They may pay for minor home modifications if we needed a wheelchair ramp or a bigger shower because of a disability, those types of things. So it is important to get yourself on the list if you are not already, and you'll want to check out that webinar. So all of our webinars are on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. Everybody is going to get an email after this, which will have a link to our Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. It'll have a copy of the slides, how to get in contact with us, all of that. You guys will get an email after this presentation today. But Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, you'll see the flower. When you look that, you'll see the Consolidated Planning Group flower, and you can subscribe to that for free. There's absolutely no charge. And every week when we do new webinars, we put those webinars out there on that YouTube channel. Again, it's my heart that you guys will find those webinars helpful on your journey, and not feel as defeated as sometimes as parents we do as we're navigating this journey. Our jobs are hard, and some days are hard. Sometimes more days than not are difficult. And so we hope that this will definitely help you on your journey. So the things to keep on your radar is how to develop a comprehensive special needs care plan. That's what we do. We help families every day all across the United States help plan for not only your own retirement, that's going to be 25 to 35 years, but the 25 to 35 years after you're gone. And also the other kids that you may have that may need to go to college, or you plan for a wedding or other things like that. We help people figure out, and we do future care cost estimates of how much money do I need to fund a special needs trust. And we do small, medium, and large, because we know that some families are hopeful and optimistic that the child is going to get there. They're not there yet, but maybe one day they will. So what we tell people is we want you to plan for the worst, but hope for the best. Our kids' brains aren't even fully formed until they're 26, and kids with disabilities are usually 2 to 4 years even behind their peers. So, what we're seeing now at 14 or 15, and if you're a parent and it's feeling a little hopeless where you are, all I can tell you is where you are at 14 or 15 and where they are at 25 or 26 and even 30 are vastly different. So, don't be discouraged, is what I'm saying. There's a lot of growth going on. So we have taken, we had talked about the Texas waivers, SSI, SSDI, understanding the difference and knowing when to apply. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We have the only software out there that takes into consideration a disabled adult child under a parent's record, and it's going to tell us exactly when and how you should specifically draw your Social Security down to the month and year to maximize benefits for you, and if you're married, your spouse, as well as your disabled adult child. And some families have more than one child with a disability, so it tells us exactly what we need to do on that. So as it relates to beneficiary designations, I'm sorry if you've heard me talk about this a million times, but it's too important not to bring up. It is very, very important that we do not name our disabled child, whether they're a minor or an adult, as a beneficiary on anything that we have. I'm speaking of life insurance, investment accounts, bank accounts, anything that we can leave a person a beneficiary, that we never name our our loved one with a disability directly as a beneficiary. The reason we don't want to do that is because then they're going to get money that's more than $2,000, and then they're going to lose Medicaid and lose SSI or other public benefits, and they could also cause them to lose the Medicaid waiver that they waited 17 years for. I should mention that people that are attending from other states, many states across the United States don't have a waiting list at all for Medicaid waivers. It is unfortunate for Texans. It is unfortunate for Florida. That the waiting list is very, very long, but there are plenty of states that have a short waiting list or they have no waiting list at all. So I just wanted to mention that. So beneficiary designations, if you're taking notes, check your beneficiary designations: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, life insurance, former pensions from former employers. What a lot of people have done is they've named their spouse as the beneficiary, and if I'm dead and gone, I mean, if they're already dead and gone when I pass away, then my kids will divide it equally because they want to be fair. And that sounds good, but it's wrong. And you can change this for free by requesting a new change of beneficiary form and making sure that you have a special needs trust set up for said child. And then instead of little Johnny Smith as the beneficiary, we're going to name the special needs trust for the benefit of Johnny Smith, and that will fix the problem. Okay, so if you've done it, again, don't beat yourself up. Just make a note that it's really important that you fix it. And then the other thing that I want to mention on that is it's also very important that you have what I would call intentional conversations with any aging family members in your life, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody who might be inclined to leave money to their favorite grandchild, or to their grandchild that struggles or whatever, because their advisor doesn't have any background in special needs. That fewer than 0.1% tells me that their advisor doesn't have any special needs. And how easily and accidentally this happens, they go to their advisor and they say, we have this grandson and he has autism and we would like to leave him money. And they say, great, what's his name? And they change the beneficiary to your child's name. And sometimes our parents and grandparents, they keep their cards close to their chest. So you really do have to have intentional conversations, let them know the name of the special needs trust, the tax ID for that, and help them change those beneficiaries so things are set up correctly. If the child inherits money directly to themselves as opposed to a special needs trust, there is a way around it, and you would have to get with an attorney, and then you would have to get a first party special needs trust that would have a Medicaid payback and then direct the money that way. So it's cumbersome, it's expensive, it's the attorney fees that are expensive, and it is cumbersome, and also there's a Medicaid payback at death. So if you want to avoid that Medicaid payback at death, set beneficiaries up properly to go to the third party special needs trust for the benefit of said child, okay? So we have entire webinars on special needs trust where we partner with various attorneys across the state, and they tell us, what we need to know, the differences between a first party and a third party, and everything you need to know. A regular trust is not a special needs trust. So it is important that if you are having a trust or if you're leaving money to an individual with a disability that is definitely a bona fide special needs trust, and an attorney nuanced with that will help you do that. We talked about residential living communities and that waiting lists can be long, so we suggest starting to tour. I've toured so many of them, and it's always so encouraging. There's some really awesome places across the state. I've got families that have got kids in most of them, with really good experiences. So check them out, and you'll see when you go and do the tour, you'll see, does my child fit here? Do they not fit here? But what you'll find is that they're all cool, and most of the individuals that are there love it so much that when you bring them home for the weekend, they ask when they're going to go, when they get to go back. Love it so much that when you go up there to visit them, they kind of hurt your feelings. They ask when you're going to leave because they like it. So I think that the beauty of those is they give us some autonomy from each other, autonomy for you to live your life and have some semblance of retirement that you hoped for. Maybe you want to travel, maybe you want to volunteer, whatever. Maybe you want to relax. Maybe raising kids has been tough. But it also gives them the opportunity for growth and to have some autonomy from us without having our thumb on them all the time, allowing them to grow and be the best that they can be. So just think about that. So we talked about the guardianship, the alternatives to guardianship. In Texas, those alternatives are supported decision-making agreement, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. There is a partial guardianship. Some counties are in favor of that, some counties aren't. So you'll want to look at that. We have entire webinars with attorneys on guardianship and what you could expect and how the process works, what documentation that you need, and those types of things. So you can start the guardianship process 6 months prior to your child turning 18. You don't need guardianship prior to them being age 18 because you already have that. So, but you can start the process 6 months prior to them turning 18. So in hopes that the guardianship, if you're going to get guardianship, will fully be in place by the time that they do turn 18. So that'll be the important thing. And again, be easy on yourself, because the guardianship and kind of the process of guardianship can be stressful. The individual has to be served. So that feels weird. And, having, to put guardianship in place doesn't feel good. It's not what you hoped for. It was not what you necessarily wanted, right? But give yourself some grace on that, and then just know, again, you don't have to know everything when you go to sit down with an attorney. Their job is to very carefully go through the process with you and help walk you through what might be the best option for you. But again, I just want to caution against, I'm not for or against, I am for what is most appropriate, but I am against people that do not have capacity signing documents like a power of attorney or health care power of attorney when they have no capacity to understand what they're signing. And although you can do it, and it is certainly cheaper than getting a guardianship, it could come back to haunt you later. So I just want to make that clear. And then we talked about the post-high school education options and all of the webinars on our YouTube channel about that topic. So we want you to look at that as well. Another thought that I have is that as far as the public school is concerned, we have our ARD meetings and a lot of our kids have accommodations. Being clear on what your intentions are. If it is your intention for your child to stay in the high school post age 18 to 21 or 22, letting them know that early when you're having your meetings is going to be important. And one of the things that I think about, I have some families that they're very eager when the child turns 18 to get their kid out of the school. I have other families that aren't, and other families haven't thought about it that much, or maybe they didn't even know that they could stay in the public school. But what my thought process is when it comes to a loved one with a disability, as parents, we have a lifetime of paying for these children. Okay, a lifetime of housing and food and shelter and whatever else. Maybe it's offsetting, maybe they are underemployed, maybe some of our kids will never work, some of them are underemployed, and a lifetime of offsetting these things. And what I know for sure in the work that we've done is a lot of our kids from a maturity perspective are late to the party. they're behind their peers from a maturity perspective. So what my thought is if the school is working, and there's a lot of great schools out there, including public schools, and they have, some of these programs are 18 plus programs, they have Mosaic programs, other programs that are designed to help build some of these life skills, and help, like transition programs and things like that. If you don't know about them, ask your school. We partner with a lot of the ISDs. We're here today with North End ISD. There's lots of awesome programs. So ask early, learn about these programs. And again, if they're learning and growing and they're happy, and they're there a couple years later, throw out the stereotype of they have to finish at age 18. Because I'm a huge fan of they are where they are, they're not behind. So we need to quit being Facebook parents and looking at everybody else's kids' successes and really meet our kids where they are, and they are where they are. And if they're thriving and doing well, let them stay in the school. Go to that 18 plus program, Mosaic programs, all these other programs. There are transition programs outside of the public school, but research those early because they're not cheap. Some of them are anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 a month. So that's not nothing. And there's people on here that's no problem. And there's other people on here that would be a significant financial challenge. So just check all of those things out. When you get our slides today, you can click this link for our upcoming webinars. Whenever you register for a webinar with Consolidated Planning Group, our webinars are always from 12 to 1. But whenever you register, if something comes up at work and you're not able to attend, if you register for that webinar, you are going to get an email either that day or the next day of the actual webinar with a link to the recording and a copy of the slides. So you can kind of click that link and see what our upcoming webinars are. As for Consolidated Planning Group, we work on a collaborative team here at CPG. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, chartered special needs consultants. Our whole firm is nuanced in planning for special needs. So as I said earlier, whether you work with us or you work with another professional that is specifically nuanced in special needs, we strongly suggest that you work with somebody that is nuanced in special needs when it comes to financial planning. And when it comes to your legal documents, work with a professional that is nuanced with special needs. It is critically important. We see documents all the time that are wrong, and they didn't mean to. It wasn't their fault. They just don't understand the public benefits and the nuances that go along with that. So just be very, very careful. We're happy to provide referrals on that front as well. We've had a lot of questions today, several good questions, and I appreciate you guys putting those in there. And some people might have been a little bit shy. They maybe didn't ask a question, and we're happy to, talk to you further, kind of on a one-off on that. We always offer free personalized consultations. This is a 45-minute free personalized consultation. This QR code, if you hover your camera over that, and again, it'll be in the link. When you get the slides, and this Facebook thing will give you the link for our YouTube channel link here. But so you can schedule yourself, it'll take you to a calendar and you can schedule yourself for a free 45-minute personalized consultation, and we can go deeper with you. If you've got letters for Health and Human Services, issues with Medicaid, there's so many things every day that we hear. It never ends. There are a lot of problems with the Health and Human Services and Medicaid programs and Social Security, and getting through to Social Security, and we can help and provide some guidance on that, so we can help you with that. We can also clearly help you set up an ABLE account. We'll be happy to schedule an ABLE account with you, ABLE account appointment with you as well. So we've got one last question. To be clear, if a DAC, which is the Disabled Adult Child I mentioned earlier, which is also called CDB, Childhood Disability Benefits now, has RSDI and a Medicaid waiver program, their special needs trust can still pay for housing costs. And the answer is yes. Okay. So it definitely can. Everything changes. How work affects SSI, and how work, like if the disabled child is working, how it affects SSI and reduces SSI versus doesn't reduce RSDI, SSDI, DAC benefits, childhood disability benefits. We have entire webinars on there because it is confusing. We have acronyms that sound the same that are not the same at all, and we have some that don't sound the same that are totally the same. So like I said, if you have felt confused on any of these fronts, you're definitely not alone. Well, we would like to thank North End ISD for partnering with us today. We partner with a lot of the ISDs all across the state, and we appreciate that. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here today with us. We are here to help. And what I would tell you, and I say this a lot, it's not about beating yourself up about what you haven't done when it comes to planning. Sometimes people say, oh, Allison, I would be embarrassed if you knew what we haven't done. I don't care. It's not about looking back. It's about looking forward and taking the steps that we need to take to move ourselves forward in this direction. And we can definitely help you with that. So some people have done a lot of planning. They may already have a special needs trust. They may already have an ABLE account. But a lot of people come to us that have done a lot of planning because it's been sitting on the shelf for a while. They want to dust it off and they want a second opinion or a look under the hood. Some people have gotten started and they need to take the next step. So wherever you are on the planning journey, we can definitely help you. Schedule your free personalized consultation. And during that consultation, we'll learn a little bit more about you, your loved one with a disability. We'll learn a little bit more about the planning that you've done so far. And we'll share more about Consolidated Planning Group and the doors that you can walk through with us. And so that's basically how that all works. Certainly been my pleasure being here with you guys today, and we certainly look forward to seeing you again soon. And thanks again, everyone, for their awesome questions. So check your email later this afternoon or tomorrow for the slides and a link to the recording, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye now.